Sometimes it's not a skill problem, it's a paddle problem.
But it's usually a skill problem.
I think most amateurs would disagree with you.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
Not too long ago, I was playing with Amazon paddles. You guys have been telling me that I need to switch a paddle, and I have no idea why. So in this video, I'm gonna figure out, along with you, how to choose the perfect pickleball paddle for you with NCCP Pickleball coach, Brandon Stegmeyer.
Let's go.
Okay, Brandon, what's the difference between paddles? First of all, I come from badminton. All of these are just pieces of plastic to me.
Well, there's more to it than just plastic. There's plastic, there's wood, in some of these paddles, they even have foam. But before we can even really decide what we want to do in terms of our paddle and everything like that, we first need to kind of figure out our budget.
Okay,
right?
sure.
So if you or somebody else is more of a recreational player, it's not really going to make sense to spend $200, $300 on a new paddle. It doesn't really make sense to get the highest end paddle.
Okay, but I have one question about the highest end paddles.
Okay.
In badminton, if you buy more expensive racket, you won't do better because more expensive rackets are stiffer, and an amateur who doesn't know how to use it will actually do worse than if they bought a cheaper racket. Does that apply in pickleball?
It does to a certain extent. There are classic, very famous paddles right now, for example, like the Selkirk Boomstick, which is a top-of-the-line paddle that you see even a lot of intermediate to beginner players purchasing this paddle. And something like that, they can easily generate power, and they can get this illusion that maybe they're become a better player because of that paddle, but they don't quite have the actual skills or technique to execute good shots or create power themselves.
But a better paddle won't make you do worse than a paddle suitable for you.
To some extent. Again, I would say that boomstick paddle is a great example of something that can be a little bit more versatile. Some paddles can actually be much more forgiving, which can help players that don't quite have the feel yet. But there are certainly more power paddles that we'll get into later that will make that player significantly worse. They don't know how to control it.
Okay.
Step number 2, we want to figure out our desired shape.
Okay.
So pickleball paddles actually have quite a few different shapes. The 3 main ones that we would have, so elongated here would be longer from the end here. This gives you more leverage as you swing through, which means you would have more power, but it tends to make the paddle a little bit heavier in its swing weight. So the time for you to throw the paddle forward as you swing, and it moves the sweet spot and makes it a little bit smaller. So if you are someone that's missing a lot of shots and doesn't have a lot of good accuracy, an elongated wouldn't be for you. If you're like a tennis player or you're consistent with your power and you know how to hit the ball well, elongated could be a better fit.
Okay.
Then we've got something like a hybrid shape here. So this is more of a square, but hybrid would be similar. So it's more of like a boxy shape. This here, the sweet spot is a little bit more wider. Okay, so it's more consistent, centered into the paddle. The swing weight would be a little bit less because it's closer down to the throat of the handle of the paddle. So I would say this would be like your go-to to start. If you have no idea where to start, you don't know what you like, going with something like a square or a hybrid shape would be great for you to start.
It's a balanced shape, right?
It's a balanced shape. Yeah, it fits all the right boxes.
What about these, where it's just it starts narrow and then starts extending wide?
Yeah, so that's actually this is actually more reflective of the hybrid shape. Something that kind of fans out. Some brands call it arrow shape, but this moves the sweet spot up a little bit higher while still maintaining that wideness that you wouldn't get from something like an elongated paddle. But in this case, this 100 brand one is labeled as wide. This would be the 3rd shape. So we've had elongated, we have our standard or hybrid shape, and a wide body shape would mean it would be more boxy. So it'd be even more wider on the outside. Actually, this Supreme one looks pretty good in terms of its shape. So having a wider body means the sweet spot is even larger itself. So this would be for someone that is a control player. They want to get the ball more on the sweet spot, which allows them to get better control, better feel, unlike somebody, for example, that has the elongated that can't get that sweet spot too often.
So simply said, the longer it is, the more power you get, and the wider it is, the more control you get.
That's a great way to summarize it.
Okay, so now that we have identified the shape that we want, what is the next step?
So step number 3 would be picking the paddles based on its core.
Right.
So we have to understand that each paddle actually has a different core, which is the inside of the paddle. Traditionally, like I'd say maybe about 5 years ago, most paddles would be what they call like a honeycomb core. So in a honeycomb core, it's quite literally what you would imagine. It would just be a bunch of different honeycomb shapes inside the paddle. And this here gives it a really rigid and stiff feel, but it can be quite consistent. The problem with that honeycomb though is they found over time as you hit the ball, it would start to degrade or crush the core.
Okay.
So suddenly you would get certain spots of it that as you're hitting would just kind of plop off, or dead spots.
Okay.
Right? So what they started to do, you'll find on some newer paddles like the one that we have here, this one has also a foam core inside of it. And having something with a foam core gives you something that is much more durable, but also something that's a little bit more springy.
Okay.
If you think about it like a foam mattress, if you were to put your hand on it, you can sink into it, and as you would lift your hand, you would see the foam expand. So if you have that same idea with a pickleball, pressing on and off of it, this can give you something that feels plush when you're hitting slow, or that can spring if you're hitting it fast.
Right.
So much more durable, you get a better sense of feeling on the ball, but something like this paddle here that is stiffer, that's got that that honeycomb inside of it, this can give you a much more direct feeling.
Right.
So the moment you hit the ball, you would feel it pretty much right through your arm, where this one here, you might feel a bit more plushness.
Okay, so the Amazon one I was using before was wood, right?
It would probably be like a mixture. Yeah, you could even find full wood paddles, which
Okay.
are very stiff.
Okay.
Like, yeah. But like it would probably be a wood, maybe even fiberglass.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's a combination of stiffness to softness for the core.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then the most soft being what type of material? The foam material?
Would be the foam. Yeah. So typically what I would say is if you want to understand the feel of the ball, which is I would say for most beginners, using something that's like a honeycomb would actually be a good first step.
Okay.
Once you feel like you've got a good feel of the ball and you feel like you want to advance and get something that has a bit more of a spring to it, that's where you can start to look into these foam paddles. Even though, keep in mind, just because I say honeycomb and foam, brands make their paddles differently. You can arrange the foam differently. So I always recommend people trying them out or reading reviews as well.
What does this do in terms of the feel of the ball? Can we like just juggle some? I'm
Yeah, yeah.
curious.
Quick pause, we do things differently here. We don't sell courses and we don't hide great coaching behind paywalls because everything we teach on this channel stays completely free and that's never changing. If you want to help keep it that way, join our YouTube memberships where you'll get access to our private community, member perks, and you'll be directly supporting free education for people everywhere. Now back to the video.
So if I'm just hitting something with honeycomb, you can hear it's got more of like a ting to it.
It still
much
sounds
more
quite soft.
You think so?
I think so. Maybe I don't know the comparison.
For me, I feel like I'm hearing a bit of a sharpness. I get a better sense of it on my arm though,
Right.
of what I'm doing to the ball, which I like.
Let me give this a try.
Go for it.
Because I can still feel, I can hear a cushion sound on it. It's not completely, I guess I'm comparing to my wood Amazon paddle.
And it could also be the surface a little bit there too as well.
Okay, I can feel that it is a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Compared to, yes.
To others, yeah.
Okay, and this is the foam one?
And so this here, we would have a foam.
Oh, wow.
So you can hear the pitch is a little bit higher. And then also with this, I can feel it a little bit more plusher. As I'm having to push, I actually feel like I need to do a little bit more with it.
Let me try this.
Okay, go for it.
Wow, this is a lot softer. So,
You can feel it just as it makes contact, right?
Yes.
Like it sits in a little bit more. Yeah.
so what does this mean? Foam will help you generate more power and harder will have more control?
So foam would reflect your swing better. If you're hitting softer and you're dwelling more on your actual swing, you'll hold on to that a little bit more so it can feel like you're pocketing it. But if you're swinging faster, it will feel more like it's springing. So
Okay.
there's more of a trampoline effect. So it reflects your swing more.
Okay, so a harder paddle is actually more forgiving than a softer paddle.
I would say to a certain extent, just like anything, if you get used to it, of course you can adjust to those nuances, but I actually do feel like the harder paddle gives people a better sense of what they need to do,
Right.
where this feels like it adds an extra layer that people aren't otherwise used to.
Right, because when it gets softer, you start to get more dynamic range in your power.
Yes.
Right? And you require a lot more control. Okay, so for me right now, what would you say? Do I use something harder or something softer?
So I actually think if we adjusted the shape for you, Alex, to give you something that's maybe a little bit more forgiving, but I think we could actually get you used to the foam. Because again, this is where most of the advancement is happening these days. I think it's good to get used to a newer feeling.
Right.
So step number 4 is really getting into the details, and there are tons. So the first detail I would consider is the surface of the paddle. So even if we imagine these two paddles were exactly the same, except for the surface, you can really hear the difference. So from here, it's much quieter.
We can hear the difference?
And this
Okay,
one,
go
go ahead.
Oh, it's
Much grittier,
Yes.
right? Now feel this one.
it's like slipperier.
It's much slipperier, right? So when we think about creating spin through our shots, if we're brushing up on the ball, something that's gritty will absolutely catch the ball and produce more rotations per minute than something that is completely smooth. Okay, so we would want to consider that. If we're someone that's coming from like table tennis, where a lot of our stroke is brush, having something that grits it more, like a table tennis paddle would, it makes sense to do something like this. Also, you'll notice that most beginner or entry-level paddles, like this one here, don't also usually have the grit because most players at that level don't understand how to produce spin. So this is something that might be a little bit more reliable. But for you, Alex, seeing your background, I think it makes sense to have something that's a bit grittier.
What's the downside of something grittier when you're not as good?
Again, it's like if you had poor technique, so you're trying to kind of cut and slice at every ball and you don't really understand what you're doing to it, having more grit will essentially escalate that mistake to the point where it'll feel like your ball is uncontrollable. So that's where having something that's a little bit smoother might make a bit more sense.
Is there any scenario where someone would, like a pro player, would want less grit?
Absolutely not, because in their case, they have a pretty good understanding of how to produce spin. So for them, they would want usually the grittiest paddle. I don't think every pro chooses that, but certainly every pro paddle has grit to some extent.
Because on table tennis, there's two sides of a paddle, right? The grittier side is usually used more defensive for more slices, but their attacking side is less gritty.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
And I'm thinking now, well, if you really want to hit something fast, you can't add too much spin on it because that takes off speed of contact. So, but in pickleball, I mean, at a highest level, it's pretty balanced on the grit.
Yeah, and it's the same on both sides. I haven't heard of a paddle yet that has deviated by switching sides like in table. Maybe that's something right there, manufacturers.
That actually sounds like a good idea because forehand, attack, backhand,
Could be,
defense.
could be. So we talked mostly about the surface. Another detail to consider would be the thickness of the paddle. So paddles can be in different thicknesses, anywhere from something that's about 14 to 16 millimeters thick tends to be a bit more plush, which means it's more of a control. With having more material, it allows you to absorb more off the ball, so it's not typically something that generates a lot of power. It also has added weight too. If you get something that's a little bit thinner, so this here looks like it might be about 13 millimeters, for example, this, because it has less surface area and less depth in the paddle, will tend to feel more powerful as you hit. So again, if you yourself, Alex, based on our lessons together, you look like someone who really embraces power, so this might be something you would want to favor, a thinner paddle.
Wait, summarize again why a thinner paddle gives more power?
So you have more material on a thicker one to absorb the force from the ball. When you have something that's thinner, there's not as much material for that energy to go into, so most of it will come right back off in spring.
But if it's thinner and it comes right back, doesn't that provide more sensitivity instead of power? Because if it's thicker, shouldn't that, like a trampoline, actually give more repulsion?
And that does then go back and depends on the material. So for something like a honeycomb, I wouldn't say that's true, right? Because you have a much stiffer material. So you have a stiffer material that's even thinner. There's less of that energy to be dissipated into the material. On something like foam, those old truths that we might say in pickleball would actually deviate. Because you're right, with something with foam, that would still have that springy sort of feel. But generally speaking, if it's thinner, it will create more power. If it's a little bit thicker, it'll provide more control.
Okay, is that pretty much all we need to know for the paddles?
I would say so.
I want to try some of these out. Why don't we hit some balls and see what it feels like?
Let's go for it.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna try 3 different paddle shapes now, and we're gonna do that through serves. So we've got more of a square boxy shape, we've got our elongated here, and we've got our hybrid, somewhat wide body shape here.
Okay, let's start with the box paddle. You hit a few serves and I'll hit a few serves. And I'm curious what the difference is between how you feel on the serve versus how an amateur like me feels on the serve.
Yeah, this feels very stiff right away. Yeah.
That sounds stiff.
I can feel it a lot more in my arm, and I actually feel like I need to do a lot more to get this ball to travel.
And I can see that you're getting a lot of feedback on your arm, but what you're doing is not fully being translated into the ball moving forward.
No, like normally with the paddles that I typically use, I'm able to get something that will travel a little bit further.
Right.
But this one here, I really, really feel like I have to give it to do it.
Right.
But again, if I feel like my form is off, I can definitely see it with a paddle like this one here.
Let me give it a try. Let's see, maybe this is the one for me.
It could, yeah, it could be.
Okay. I mean, it's not bad. Well, I haven't tried much else, but it feels okay.
Do you see what I mean about the stiffness a little bit though?
It actually doesn't feel super stiff for me.
Really?
Yeah, it feels like soft. Well, I think I'm comparing everything to my wooden Amazon paddle.
Oh yeah. Everything's an upgrade for you today, Alex.
Okay, this feels actually not bad for me. So
Okay.
I guess from like an amateur perspective, like you actually don't need that good of a paddle. Well, we'll see once we try some of these other stuff. Here,
Okay.
try the second paddle here. So this one's our elongated paddle.
Elongated shape, and you can see we didn't test the grit on or show you the grit on this one, but this one still got quite a bit of grit as well. So this should help cut the ball. Whoa, yeah, big power.
What just happened there?
So there alone, like for me, I'm not a big elongated guy because there, even the shape and the point of contact for the ball is quite different.
I can see there's so much more cushioning here compared to the first one.
I can feel that too, but I'm getting much more spin out of this one for sure.
And I can see the momentum actually, it's actually obvious how much more momentum is carrying through on your swing.
Right, and that's the leverage, right, that we get through an elongated shape. Yeah. Huh.
I wouldn't think it would be
like
this
one.
obvious actually, with a little bit longer, like how much obvious more momentum you have.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you can get some paddles, even not just elongated shape, but even elongated handle, tennis players, you would love paddles like that.
Okay, let's
give it a go.
Try. Oh, this is, I don't know if I like softer better.
Yeah, it's a little bit more plush. It's got a slightly thicker core in there. But do you feel the grit on that one a bit more?
I do feel a little bit more traction. It feels like there's more, my shot feels softer, but my ball is traveling faster.
Yes, and that's kind of that trampoline sort of effect that we were talking about
But that
earlier.
might be deceptive for some amateur players where on harder paddles, it feels like they're hitting hard, but the ball is not traveling fast.
Oh, right, in terms of how much they're actually swinging on it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's try our last paddle here.
Okay.
Wide body, soft cushion. So is this gonna be the softest?
Well, with the foam, it should have a decent spring to it. Ooh.
Oh, that's like,
I like this one a lot.
it's like a trampoline.
Yeah, I really
What
like
the?
this one here. Yeah, so I feel like it's much easier to hit that sweet spot. I like the weight being a little bit lower. And I feel like I'm really getting good spin on that too.
Yeah, I can see the spin, but it doesn't look like you're hitting hard.
What?
I mean,
well, it's certainly not the most powerful paddle, but I still feel like I'm able to generate.
seems like it has the most spin on this one. But compared to the first one, it just feels like you're just slapping the ball. This one, it feels like you're kind of like escorting the ball out.
Escorting. Well, that's a polite way of putting it. Yeah. Well, why don't you give it a try?
Okay.
Let me know what you think.
What the?
Go again. And what are your initial impressions on it?
I can see the ball is faster, but also if I start hitting the side a little bit, it doesn't get that cushion as much. You have to hit in the center.
More in the sweet.
Right.
Yeah. But even then, you're still producing a decent shot, right? And that's part of the larger sweet spot that you get from a shot like
one
that.
thing I feel is for these harder paddles, because it's harder, it's actually the same feel throughout, even if you hit on the side.
Yes.
So that's the more forgiving aspect, right?
Yeah, in terms of the wide body shape and also the foam there as well. So that can be the consistency, is you don't necessarily have to hit the sweet spot. There are benefits for sure, but you can still get away with poor shots.
Right. So I have one last question here. It's, when I'm hitting this, obviously I see the result is better on the ball, but the feeling on my hand, it feels like there's less feedback. Is that just something we have to get used to?
100%. It's very important when you get a new paddle that everything could possibly feel different. So it's a matter of getting the repetitions in, getting used to that new sensation. And once you start to feel it and you understand what it's like to hit softer or hit harder, then that will become your new norm.
Okay.
So if we were to wrap this up in a final step, number 5, it's always important to read reviews about these paddles and also demo them at local stores if you can. There are some great channels, John Q's Pickleball Studio, which go really in depth into paddles. So you can get a lot of information about how to choose the right paddle for you there as well.
Okay. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe and check out Brandon and our link down below.